I wasn't sugarcoating anything. I called like it is, and one thing I said repeatedly in a lot of my posts was, especially the people that just blast me, it's like, look, if I'm this passionate about this to call out recruiters for their BS the way that I am, if I'm this passionate to call out the job hiring process and employers like this, if I'm this passionate about this, imagine what I could bring to your company.
Layoffs, ghost jobs, AI. These are unprecedented times. Trying to find a job in the professional world, especially the tech sector, has never been harder. It seems the social contracts around job seeking have been all but torn up in pursuit of profits.
At the same time, there are plenty of folks out there finding new careers every day, whether through strong networking, creative approaches to job applications, or just sheer determination. There are those who have gone through the long, difficult job hunt and found success on the other end.
I'm Jason C. McDonald.
And I'm Michael Tharrington. This is On the Board, where we interview everyday people who've successfully landed jobs during the discouraging employment landscape of the last 2 years.
No out-of-touch influencers and dubious pay-to-win schemes here, just real experiences and practical insights. Todd Lucas, welcome to On the Board. Thanks for joining
Thank
us.
you for having me.
So I wanted to bring you on to chat because I remember watching during the first round of my unemployment during this insanity, you were also kind of in the same boat, and I was watching your job search almost play by play on LinkedIn. Like if anybody could actually pitch this to ESPN as a sport, you were probably pretty close.
Al Roker.
um, how would you kind of summarize your experience when you found yourself back on the job market and knee deep in this insanity?
Insanity is the right word, because it really is an insane job market out there right now. It's a market that now very much favors the employers and not so much the job seekers. Um, and really, I just kind of view what happened with me last year with what happened during the COVID lockdowns, because when that happened, there were so many people that were out of work instantaneously looking for new jobs that the market became saturated. And then at that point, employers realized, hey, we got the upper hand. We can be very picky, very choosy. And then because of that, we know all these people are desperate for a job. We can start lowballing salaries. And that trend has continued since the lockdowns. It's really what happened, because I saw roles that used to be having salaries, like 110, 120, 130. Next thing you know, you see that same role posted up on LinkedIn, 60, 70, 75. It's like, excuse me? And then taking other roles and just combining like four or five different things, like technical writing. I saw during the COVID lockdowns, technical writers started being combined with web developers, coders, and instructional designers. It's like, that's not what they do. And wanting them to do all these roles, max salary is 65,000. It's like, excuse me? You guys are insane if you think people are going to do this. But sadly, because people needed to work, what was happening? They were taking those lowball salaries, but then they get burned out, and what happens? They're back on the job market, and the employers don't care. Um, but as far as just the tediousness of it, it got to where, and I'm sure it's still there. Um, People are spending literally 8, 9, 10 hours a day online just looking for another job. And there's that whole trend of, well, you have to tailor the resume to the job. Well, people say, well, if you're doing more than 2 or 3 resumes a day, you're not doing yourself justice. It's like, you guys don't understand. When you're applying for 13, 14 jobs a day, it's because you find ways to become increasingly efficient at it. Chat GPT, once you figure out how to make that work for you, you can do 20 applications a day. You just sit there, just take the job description, take your resume, plug it in there, and it spits you out a resume tailored to that particular job. And that was what my shtick was in 2020, is what I did again last year when I was laid off. That's why, I mean, just where'd my count go? I just looked it up. Just between June 2023, and when I finally got hired, May of this year. Uh, and these are just the confirmation emails I got for roles I applied for. Just the confirmations, 1,700. 354 days, 1,700 emails, and that's just the confirmations.
Wow.
That's probably about another 300 or 400 that I didn't get confirmations for. So that's just in the course of a year. That's how bad the job market is, and I don't see it changing anytime soon.
Just getting into a little bit of how you ended up looking for work. I'm wondering, could you tell us a little bit about your previous position before you ended up unemployed and looking for work, and then what kind of jobs you were looking for?
Well, I was working for a company at the time called Avantax, and they're in the wealth management space, and uh, I was hired initially as a technical writer, but it very quickly kind of became project management because they hired me to be in charge of their LMS. So we're gonna hire you as a tech writer, but you're gonna be our LMS administrator. Okay, that's fine. I had two bosses doing two different tasks. And then after about like 4 or 5 months, they said, well, you're doing pretty good at this. How would you like to manage all of our Qualtrics surveys company wide? It's like, okay, cool. So I had to learn Qualtrics on my own, learn how to build these massive surveys because their big surveys were so massive. They were having to incentivize them with, $100 gift cards to get people to finish this 30-minute survey. That was literally 200 lines of coding questions because they wanted, verbatim feedback on why you chose every single answer you gave on it. Well, that then became project management because I was the one dealing with all the Qualtrics surveys, doing all the intakes, planning everything, developing them, and doing everything myself. And the whole time they were also going after their Great Place to Work certification. Okay, cool. April, they get their Great Place to Work certification. Yay, we're all happy. May, we have our big company-wide meeting. Yay, we're all happy with our Great Place to Work certification. Yeah, we're talking about bringing on new business and streamlining and getting back to our core values because they used to own TaxAct. Well, they sold TaxAct. We're going to get back to focusing on us. 2 weeks later, yeah, we're doing layoffs. What? Oh, is that what you meant by streamlining? Okay. Well, there I went out the door. A month later, they took my role and they rebranded it, renamed it, relabeled it, and gave it another salary. Lower by 20,000. So that was when I first got on the market was June, and there was a little bit of hope because I got picked up by another company like about a month and a half later, out in California. But then they realized they didn't need a project manager; they needed somebody to do more deep dive data analytics. So my contract ended like after a month, essentially. The funny thing was, they had just made a new acquisition. Guess who it was? They bought a Vantax.
Oh my gosh.
And I was kind of like, oh, okay. Yeah, see, companies that are doing good, they don't put themselves up for sale. So in my mind, I think I kind of got the better end of that deal because now there's no more Vantax. Okay. And I'm very happy where I'm at now. But yeah, just the road to get to where I'm at, what was that saying? Long and fraught full of dangers.
One of the things I noticed when you were posting on LinkedIn is that this is where it became very obvious to me initially. I had had some suspicions before, but watching your comment section, when it became very obvious to me that there was this chasm between most of, because a shout out to there are a few good recruiters out there. I want to point that out. There's some really great recruiters, but
Yeah.
it seems like the lion's share of recruiters, and certainly the career coaches and the paid resume writers and whatever, like all the advice that they're giving, and then there's reality, and never the twain shall meet. And I found it amazing that you would say, I experienced X, and you would get dogpiled in the comments by all the career influencers saying, no, you didn't.
Yeah. Don't invalidate my feelings. Yeah, it was insane. It's like, and the dogpiling was hilarious at one point too, because I got to the point where at one point I was just like, I don't care anymore. I'm gonna call you guys out for all the BS you're pulling on people because blatant ageism, blatant sexism. You're discriminating because of age gaps, job gaps. You're doing all this stuff because all you want to do, you want to find the youngest, cheapest version out there. You're totally discounting the people that have been doing the job for 20, 30 years. That would be the best people you're going for because a lot of them are like, oh, well, if you're in your 50s, well, you're already looking for your way out the door. Excuse me? Did you just put words into my head? No, I guarantee you, most people that are in their 50s, they're wanting someplace to stay. They're not looking for the way out because if they're on the job market at 50 something, it's because something catastrophic has happened in their careers. They've gone through a bankruptcy, their company is closed. Something has happened to put them back on the market 9 times out of 10. They're not looking to go anywhere. But that's all the recruiters were doing. The age discrimination is absolutely insane. And I experienced it in during the COVID lockdowns. I applied for actually a recruiter for Toyota had reached out to me because they're creating a new role within Lexus for their training QA manager, and they wanted me to apply for it. Well, I applied for it. I sent them a resume, and about a week later, I had contacted the recruiter for follow up, and they said, "Yeah, they went with somebody else because they said they wanted somebody more junior in the role." And I was like, oh, you didn't realize you had somebody that was over 40 applying. That's what it is. That's because that's exactly the way that they phrased it. We appreciate your experience, but we want somebody more junior.
Mm, mm.
Okay, and this is coming from Toyota. Yeah, thank you very much. So the age discrimination, the employment gap discrimination, it just became just so much. I just started blasting everybody for it whenever I saw it, and I didn't care. And then you'd have the people that would dogpile on me as well. Well, no, they didn't. Okay, well, I guess I'm living a different life then, because I guarantee you those are my memories. It was just, and then you get the ones. Well, not all recruiters are the same. I'm aware of that, but you look on LinkedIn, they're all kind of cookie cutter.
Mhm. Yeah. Well,
They're all
and as soon as someone utters the word "not all," whatever follows after that, just don't say because
Mhm. Yeah.
it's usually there's so many stupid things that follow the words "not all." But I mean I I do find it interesting though that you actually, if I remember correctly, you wound up finding the recruiter that connected you with your job because you and she were actually debating the finer points of one of these things, ironically.
Right.
So, contrary to the, well, don't post anything negative, don't ever say anything negative, happy, frosted sugar bombs thoughts, everything's wonderful. You didn't, and that actually helped you.
It did, yeah. And she still talks to me all the time, but just on Teams, it's hilarious. Like 5 seconds after I got the email saying that my clearance had come through, she pops up on Teams. Congratulations! It's like, hi Jessica. But yeah, and that's what I told her. But it's like, look, we're not always gonna agree on what I post here, but guess what? That's okay. I don't mind a healthy, constructive debate. You come at me with guns blazing, guess what? You're gonna get a fight then too, because I don't care at this point. You're gonna come at me. I'm not a little church mouse. I fight back. I'm at this point 340, 345 days, 350 days in. I'm not caring anymore about your feelings. I'm caring more about being able to provide for my wife, to be able to put food on the table. Because at that point, I was getting kind of desperate because in January my unemployment ran out, and they weren't going to start another claim for me until May of this year. Um, Savings gone. I was having to start pulling up my 401k just to have money to pay bills and just buy food and stuff like that. I was like at the point, people just don't understand. The only saving grace that we had is the fact that our house is my father-in-law's rental house. So we're not losing a house. That's one thing. Our cars are paid off. That's one thing. But then everything beyond that, That was the concern. No medical insurance for over a year, and my wife started having health issues. Thank God we got the insurance when we did, because in July, she had every gallbladder taken out.
Hmm.
Like emergency surgery. It just got to the point where she had to be admitted when we took her to the ER. She had to have it taken out. Thank goodness for insurance. Otherwise, yeah, there's that lovely medical debt everybody gets in trouble with in America. That was going to be
Right.
about $80,000 just for that.
Yeah, I feel like this sort of stuff definitely factors in when I'm looking for a role, thinking about healthcare and benefits like that. That's a must, a must do sort of a box that's needed to be checked.
Hmm.
When you were looking around for those positions, is there anything that you were and you're kind of scanning the postings? Is there anything in particular that you're looking for to get a good idea of, what the culture is like, what the benefits might be like, or are there any red flags for you that you've kind of seen and been like, ooh, the way that they wrote this posting leaves me feeling like maybe they don't have my best interest in mind.
My mindset was, and I kind of started seeing this in when when I left Amazon in 2019. I started realizing that most places are going straight to contract first before they bring you on full time, because to me it's kind of like the whole rent to own thing. They try you out first and then they bring you on full time. I understand. I kind of respect that mentality. I get that. What kind of shocked me at that point was, yeah, you're a contractor, your salaries may be better, but yeah, they don't pay into the insurance programs. Because the first time I had to deal with that, I was going to try to get insurance for my wife and I, and it was going to be almost $800 a paycheck. I'm like, excuse me, baking soda? 800 a paycheck? That's over half of what I make. And that's going to go towards nothing but insurance for two people for 1 month. That became insane. So what I started looking for were ones that were not necessarily starting off as contract, because I knew that was going to be a perilous thing. And if I knew there was going to be, the issue was going to be a contract, that was one of the first things I always asked was, tell me about how the medical works. Do you pay into it? How is the medical done? Because that honestly at that point in time was more important than the overall salary. Because if it's going to take up three-fourths of my income, then bye. I'm not gonna deal with it. So the medical was the biggest red flag that I kind of started looking at. Culture wise, I'm kind of an odd duck in that regard. I don't care about company culture. To me, it's about the work. You're paying me to do a job. You're paying me to write for government agencies. You're paying me to come up with this. You're paying me to do that. Tell me I'm doing a good job. Give us a decent raise every year. That's all I care about. I don't care about being in the spotlight. Just tell me I'm doing a good job. Tell me what I need to do to improve, whatever. That's fine. That's all I need. I'm kind of simple about things. But that's kind of my how I looked at everything. Tried to find things that were remote because of my wife, because of her parents, or her father and my parents, because my parents are pushing 90. Granted, they live 7 miles away, but that's still 90 years old almost. And my mom is very much a fall hazard right now, and my dad can't always get her up. So I've got to be kind of close by where I can just, if I need to, just zip over there to help them. Her dad lives by himself because her mom passed away uh, 3 years ago today. She's with her dad right now, going visiting her. But yeah, I had to look for stuff that was remote in case something came up. Um, and I'm seeing that now. And I think me and Jason kind of talked about it once. We thought it was kind of funny that people for years were going, "Oh, we want more remote opportunities. We want to be able to work from home." And companies were like, "Yeah, it doesn't really work that way. It can't possibly work." And here comes COVID, and inside a month, proved everybody wrong.
Hmm.
Because people were working from home, they were being more productive, they were being happier, and then all of a sudden, here comes 2023. Yeah, work from home thing is dead. We want you to come back into the office. Why? What is the point of that? And I still see that nowadays. Day one on site. Okay. And it's most of the overseas recruiters. Why are you contacting me about a job that's going to be on site day one in New York if I live in Texas? Do you not Google Maps anything? I mean, do you think I'm just gonna just suddenly just up and be like, hey, cool, I'm in New York now? No, for one, I'll never go to New York to begin with. I hate no. But the whole return to office thing, return to work thing, it doesn't make sense to me. People have proven they can work from home better. They can prove they're more productive. They've proven that they're much happier working remotely. To me, the only thing that working in an office does is allow the corporate bean counters oversight to keep track of you every single second of the day that you're on campus or on premise. And that's all it is nowadays, because what's the point of an office anymore?
I know that when 3M just announced their RTO a few days ago, and this was in the news on this is in the news section on LinkedIn, and it was pointed out that back when they came up with the remote policy around COVID, the CEO said that their remote remote first policy was based on flexibility and trust. And so I said, so is the RTO policy then based on rigidity and distrust? It's
Hmm.
kind of gotta, because I don't know. I get that there's some things you cannot do remotely, but for the jobs that actually can be done remotely,
They should
I,
be able to be done remotely. Absolutely.
the motive I think I've seen a lot for RTO has usually been, um, what you hear is, okay, well, it improves communication. It doesn't improve communication. It eliminates the need for the manager to deliberately communicate.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. When I was with Vantax, the he was one of the vice presidents of like marketing or something. I can't remember what it was, but he said that the first week that they had gone back into the office, because they're kind of responsible about it. They said if you're a manager or supervisor, you're going to be back in the office 5 days a week, no questions asked. But if you're working remotely, we'll ask you to be in the office maybe like 3 days a quarter. Okay, well that's cool. So my manager at the time was like, you know what? How about we just do this? We have our once a month team meeting like this. How about we just coincide that with the 1 day a month that they actually cater lunch in the building, and that way we can just come in, get a free lunch, because they didn't say how long you had to be in the office, just that they wanted you to be in the office. So we're like, okay, we'll play that game. But it's like it doesn't make sense. I mean, team building, because he came in and said, the first week I was there, I forgot how many distractions there were, because everybody at that point is just able to stop by your desk and ask, how are you doing this? You're spend 10, 15 minutes chatting with somebody at your desk and not doing your work. You don't have that at home most of the time because you're at home. A coworker can't come by and bother you at that point. They can blow up your Teams or Chime or whatever you're using. Well, that's one thing. You can also turn it off. I personally like how the CEO of Airbnb said it last year. He actually called the office an anachronistic concept of a bygone era. Because if the office didn't exist before and somebody tried to do it now, what would be its purpose? Why would you need to go? The only reason I think physical offices need to be maintained right now is as a headquarters and a hub for all their data servers and stuff like that. That's really it. Everything else can be done remotely.
I'm curious, were you working remotely before COVID happened in your previous job as well, or were you?
I was actually I was on a contract for the American Heart Association, and
Oh.
it was kind of sad how that all happened. Um, Not sad how I got to work on them, but what happened was I was on a contract and they were working on developing a new post-stroke certification for rural communities that are far away and far removed from like major medical centers and stuff like that. Um, and we had just finished it, and that was the week that all the COVID lockdowns hit. Well, I hadn't been paying attention to the news. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was coming. All I knew was the day my contract ended. Well, that's fine. By the end of the week, they said, "Okay, we're on lockdowns." I'm going, "Wait, what? What's going on?" And then all the hiring freezes happened. So it's like, okay. And at that point, I started panicking. The only reason that we survived that period was because of all the COVID checks that came out. That was the only way we survived. I had unemployment from it, COVID checks, but then again, that was 349 days. that I was out of work then before I got hired again. And during that year, I still had that folder saved on my Gmail account. That one, I believe, had shown me, let's see, just confirmations, almost 1,200 confirmed applications applied for between March 30th, 2020, and when I got hired, March 15th, 2021. So it's brutal.
Yeah. I'm sorry to cut in, Jason, because I know you might have had a question, but just hearing you talk about the confirmations, it sounds like you had a really a system for handling this, and I'm wondering if you could just explain a little bit about like how you catalog things and kind of are able to pull these numbers like this.
I and really just kind of just was like a spur of the moment thing that I just kind of did. Um, During the COVID lockdowns, I started doing it, and I don't think I really started keeping track of it until a couple weeks afterwards. I just wanted to keep track of it. Actually, I had to keep track of it for unemployment purposes because you had to tell them. I mean, in Texas, you only have to apply for 3 jobs a week. I'm like, 3 jobs a week. I do that in an hour. So, I mean, when I send my weekly totals, I actually had somebody from unemployment call me once and say, we think you may have entered it incorrectly. Did you put down you applied for 72 jobs in a week? Yeah, that's about right. You only need to apply for 3. It's like, I'm not just going to do the bare minimum like some people. I need a job. I don't care. That's what I do. But I just started keeping track of it, and that's how it kind of started snowballing to last year when I would post on LinkedIn. I was actually posting my stats. Like I had, how many roles I applied for, how many replies I got into it, the percentage of them that didn't get replied to at all, how many interviews it led to, how many second interviews, how many offers, and I had it all put up there, and that's what really started making me almost infamous on LinkedIn because I was documenting it that highly every month, and there were some people cracked me up, and Jason saw some people were literally calling me a bot.
Yeah.
They said I was a bot at times. I'm going, look at my post and tell me that the kind of mentality and the voice used in my post says bot. Like seriously, it's just absolutely insane. And I just kind of look at it as like, it's gotten where LinkedIn it's almost no better than Facebook at times or Twitter.
Yeah.
It's just all the people there are trying to get out there and get internet famous instead of actually doing a job. And they think, oh, I'll just tear everybody else down because they'll get me likes and get me connections. Like, how important are you to have LinkedIn connections and LinkedIn likes? I mean, does that make you feel better about yourself at the end of the day? Does that get you any more money at the end of the day? No, you don't really monetize LinkedIn like that. That's in TikTok.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I have to mention, I remember people saying similar things about even your posts and similar. And I think some of the stuff I was seeing, some of the criticism, like they must have been reading Todd's posts because they're like, well, don't post the hot takes because it's just it doesn't do you any good. And I pointed out to a few of them, it's like, what the reality is that honesty about the job search, your honesty personally, Todd, actually saved my life. I'm not even kidding because I was starting to feel completely defective and unhireable. Like there must be something horribly wrong with me that I can't find work. I must be losing my mind. And then to see that there were other people like you who were dealing with this as well was just, okay, I'm not crazy. I am actually having a hard time, and it's not a commentary on my skills. And that every time the depression would start to get really severe, um, I
Your eye
would
pop up.
remind myself that, well, if Todd's dealing with this and other people in my network are dealing with this, it's not me. And so this has to break at some point. We have to find jobs at some point because it's not like work no longer needs to be done. Work needs to be done, and when the companies run out of the budget to play picky and realize they actually need to hire someone to do real work, they're going to have to hire us. They're not going to have a choice.
Yeah, I just kind of looked at it from the standpoint. I actually posted like these words several times online on my posts. I just kept saying something's got to break. I'm just afraid it's going to be me before long.
Hmm.
And that was when, and and I'll never tell my wife this at all because I just can't. There was probably about a period of about 6 months that I knew I was severely depressed.
Yeah.
I mean, I had like no fuse whatsoever, had no patience. Like the least little thing would set me off when we would get into fights, and she knew what was going on.
Mhm.
She knew it was because I was stressed out, but I would never let her know just how absolutely stressed I was. Because I'm just always one that just puts out a front of everything's okay, it'll all work out. I'm not worried that much, or I'm downplaying it because I don't want anybody else to know just how much of a hurricane is going on inside my head. Because that's how scared I was at times. As get to the point where you have to start prioritizing how much food you buy every week versus do I pay the electric bill or not.
Yeah.
That's kind of the status that we were getting close to, and so we're talking. You start looking at not just how much food you buy, but what kind of food you buy. You start looking at making meals that last like an entire week at a time off of like a $5 budget. It was getting that dire, and that started just bleeding through into how I interacted with people. And it started bleeding through to my just absolute just disdain for some people on LinkedIn. Like there was one person on LinkedIn, I don't know what his deal was. He literally came at me like a Rottweiler. And I still remember, it was Stephen P. I can't remember what his name was, where he was, black guy, but he was just absolutely, he came at me like nobody else I have ever seen. I mean, he made it his mission to find my posts every time and just absolutely launch at me. And I don't know what his deal was, but at that point, he started hitting me at just the absolute wrong time, and it started getting really bad online. I finally had to, I reported him several times, blocked him. He always came back somehow. But it's just that dark period, like you're saying, you just feel like something's broken, it is you. You feel like it's you and nothing else, but then you start realizing it's not you because other people are going through the exact same thing. So, and you're the first person ever saying that, so I feel kind of like, Robin Williams and Bicentennial Man, all of a sudden, one is glad to be of service.
Yeah. And I made an effort to try and post supportively on your things, and Michael can vouch for the fact that I'm good at fighting with people when they need to be fought with.
Oh,
He's seen
absolutely.
me.
Yeah.
So I would take him on because it's like, okay, well, uh if they go unchallenged, and that's the other side of this whole, like, don't fight with strangers on the internet. Well, that's a great goal. But when they pick the fight, if they go unchallenged, that does harm. That does harm to other people. I have
Mm,
watched a number of trolls get shut down when enough people go, no, you're out of line. This is not okay. This is not the place to be tearing down someone's experiences just because you don't agree with them. And that
yeah.
that saves lives. It may not sound like it, but that literally saves lives.
Yeah, I kind of found myself in the weird situation of knowing that I kind of fell in one of two camps. Um, I was either almost kind of being the spokesperson for almost an entire age group of job seekers, or I was public enemy number one. There seemed to be no middle ground anywhere on LinkedIn for my profile and what I was posting. I was either your champion or you were going to burn me at the stake. One of the two.
Well, I feel like, sadly, so much of social media, whether it's like you said, Twitter, Facebook, or even LinkedIn, it's about like putting on the show for other people, and people will post these, like you said, they're trying to get internet famous, or they'll post something that's just like sounds good to everyone else, but is not necessarily
Hmm.
true to them. And you're posting from a place of being true to you and not worrying necessarily how it sounds or if it fits the narrative that everyone else is putting out there. And to me, I think that's just so much more relatable. That's if I come across someone who's speaking truth on LinkedIn and not just spilling, not just being kind of self-reflective in this positive sort of fake way, but actually like thinking about what's going on in their lives and sharing that. I think that draws me in so much more. And I'm curious, like, Just hearing you talk to Jason earlier, it sounded like you were able to find or recruit or connect with someone through being yourself. And do you think that, as you know, I know you had to face a lot of rough criticism and people who are just on LinkedIn to be internet famous, but do you think that maybe by being yourself that helped you to find the right place that you ended up, or was that just kind of disconnected?
It did. Because it's like I say, it just goes back to the point of, I wasn't sugarcoating anything. I called like it is. And one thing I said repeatedly in a lot of my posts was, especially the people that just blast me, it's like, look, if I'm this passionate about this to call out recruiters for their BS the way that I am, if I'm this passionate to call out the job hiring process and employers like this, if I'm this passionate about this, imagine what I could bring to your company.
Mm-hmm.
What just that flat out. And the recruiter Jessica, she started just literally just talking. She started actually just reading, kind of like how I phrase it. You can read the words, but are you hearing the voice behind it? And we just started talking. Next thing I know, she's putting me in front of my current project manager, and she's talking to me on LinkedIn. It's like, I agree with almost everything you're saying. It flies against everything recruiters tell people to do, because recruiters are saying, go through, scrub all your negative posts off of LinkedIn. Don't post anything bad. Post all the good stuff. Highlight yourself. It's like, I am highlighting myself. I'm showing you exactly what you're gonna get. You want to call me a problem child? That's a you thing. I'm not gonna sit there and be something I'm not just so I can try to get a job. You're gonna see exactly who you're gonna get. I'm not gonna play games. Look at my resume. Look at my qualifications. Look at my background. That's what you're getting. Not some 20-something kid out of college that's got no experience whatsoever, but just because they've got this new fancy degree in cybernetics or data integrity and stuff like that, have no experience whatsoever. You're going to go with them because they're cheap. They have no experience. They don't know how to conduct themselves in the job market. Yeah, I've, and Jason, I think I told Jason this one time. I had an interview with a role at Amazon once for one of their training managers or the training leads. And I was interviewed by a girl who was 20 years old. It was her first job. And she told me, well, I don't think you're the best fit for this role. And I said, excuse me? She's like, yeah, I don't really think you're qualified. I was like, look, I've been doing this job longer than you've been alive. I think I'm pretty well qualified for, because this is what my entire career has been at this point. Training, development, learning, curriculum design, curriculum and instruction. And you're going to tell me that I'm not qualified to be a training manager. Okay. And who are most of the recruiters nowadays? 20-something-year-old kids that don't know what it takes to do a job. Deciding the fate of people my age who know how to do the job.
Absolutely. And I'd add to that, if you have to change yourself to get a job, then you have to change who you are to keep that job.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth changing yourself for?
I don't compromise.
Yeah, exactly.
I honestly think I'm incapable of change at this point, to be honest. I wouldn't know what to do. Like my first year in college, it's not Myers-Briggs, I don't think, but there's some personality test that they gave everybody in my first year college class that shows how much emotional growth you have to go on throughout the course of your life. And most kids, the administrator said, well, most people are going to be on the low end of the spectrum here because you're still young, you're not going to much to grow. And I took my test, and he goes, would you mind taking it again? I'm going, did I do it wrong? No, I just want to see something. So I took it again. And the next day, he shows us, okay, well, everybody's down to the bottom. Todd's is way over here on this side. This shows he's pretty much set the way he's going to be for the rest of his life. And that was me at 18. So I'm like, Is that good or bad? He's like, no, that means the way you are, your mindset, your ideas, the way you think about things, the way you're going to be. You're pretty much the way you are for the rest of your life now. Okay. Thank you. Just give me something to look forward to.
Oh, Todd, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, really appreciate it.